Oh my god, they've got an SSD. What are we ever gonna do? PC gaming is dead! I know you're out there, and you know you're out there every day looking at that ugly Windows wallpaper with the activate Windows, go to settings to activate Windows, little notification in the bottom right of your screen. You should really just go ahead and activate. I want to thank CD Key Sales for sponsoring this video. I've actually used them a few times to buy Windows 10 Pro keys, so it's pretty easy to recommend something that I've already used before in the past. And for you guys, if you use the coupon code TECH18, you can get an additional 18% off the price you see on the screen here. So Windows 10 Pro becomes $14. You can get Windows 10 Home, $12. The brand new version of Office 2019, well, it's $58 normally, but it'll be $48 if you use coupon code TECH18 to get Office 2016, which a lot of people still use. That's going to come down to $28. Note these are OEM keys, which means they are bound to your motherboard. If you change your motherboard, you may need to contact Microsoft and have them reactivate this same serial number. So let's show you how to activate Windows. What you need to do is come over here. I'm going to go ahead and buy one because I can always use like another one. Here's what we're going to do. Just come over here and you can add as many as you like to your cart, hit buy now, and the code even works for me. And submit my order. All right, just moments after you make that order, actually this took about 15 seconds for me, you can come over here to click on this and click on User Center. And then on the left, you'll be able to click on My Purchase Orders, and it'll have a list of all your different orders. So I can go ahead and view my codes right here by clicking on this. And once you get to this page, just go ahead and highlight this and copy your key, copy. And then you're gonna hit Start and type Activate, and you'll see activation settings coming up right there. Click on Activation Settings, and then you can change your product key. So go ahead and enter that in. And then when you click Next, it's going to activate. And then you can go ahead and change your wallpaper, like this screenshot I took of my Oblivion game. And again, thanks to cdkeysales.com for sponsoring this video, and now to our regularly scheduled program. So earlier I shot all the footage you're about to see, and I want to preface that just by saying that in the middle of this video I had all my research done, and I closed and opened my browser, and the article magically changed. So they updated the article and removed a lot of the nonsense because it had a ton of nonsense in it. But it's still a good opportunity to talk about the benefits to gamers and developers when looking at Unreal Engine. Tom Sr. is basically saying the Unreal Engine 5 reveal that's running on PlayStation 5 is not a big deal. And in fact, right here, the first thing I want to read in a very mocking voice is, can studios scale up to achieve this new standard? Is this a standard players are even asking for? No, it's clear that gamers just want more cartoony, bubbly bullshit like Fortnite and Valorant and all the games that fall in that stylized particular category that we can't seem to get enough of. That's all gamers want, so we don't even need the next generation infidelity. Why is Unreal even doing this? So that nonsense aside, let's go ahead and read some of this article. I usually don't do this, but I'm going to read this and piece by piece take it apart because it is so bad that's the only way we're going to get through this. So let's just start off right here. The Unreal 5 demo is amazing. Don't get me wrong. There's a clear leap in fidelity, and the dynamic lighting is gorgeous. I'm going to play it while we're doing this. Its purpose is to show off the new engine's visual capabilities, but once I unpacked the new features, I was wondering what about the tech is actually going to enable developers to create new experiences. You play games, you don't make games. I don't really make games either, but I've played around in the Unreal Engine enough to at least have somewhat of an opinion on this, right? So this is what I'm playing around with right now on the Unreal Engine. Now, he said right there, what's this? How's this going to benefit, game developers? So see this mesh right here? This mesh does not have a lot of triangles. It's really big and it's kind of ugly, but I've decided I'm not really going for the hyper realistic look. We're just going to go for like an old school RPG look. Now, it would be cool, since it's got sort of a realistic material on there, it would be really cool if this mesh did have a few more triangles. We'd have to go create something new, and then we'd have to figure out, like, is it going to work in the game if we've got this really high quality model with a gazillion triangles? Maybe I'm doing some photogrammetry. We've got some photogrammetry assets around here somewhere. So with Quixel, you have something called photogrammetry, right? Where they go in and they can actually take photos of the environment, and from those photos, they extrapolate really high quality meshes, and you can do this at cinema quality stuff that you would see in the movies that they have to put on machines and let them render for a week, put it on a render farm and stuff. And you also get materials that are generated specifically from the photos that you take and input into the Quixel suite. There's other software that can do this as well, but Unreal recently purchased Quixel. So let's say I wanted to use this in my game. They've made it very easy. So we got these nice photo scan sticks, right? I can come over here and I can pick, do I want 8K? What do I want? Unreal 4? Yep. And I'm going to do an FBX file. So, and then I can grab all these triangles, right? So right now I can grab a pretty high resolution file. With Unreal Engine 5, I don't need to worry about that. I can grab the cinema quality assets and throw them into the game. I don't have to come in here and worry about my LOD settings. I don't have to come over here and try to figure out, okay, like if I export this, do I need all these, all this stuff? Do I have to, like create several different LODs, which means a level of detail? Do I have to create a high level of detail? Do I have to render out several lower ones? Now, this is not so difficult when you're working with Quixel or Quixel Mixer. Those are like the easy mode programs. If you're working with Maya, 3D Studio Max, Blender, or Substance Painter, something like that, well, you can create a crazy model that has like a billion triangles, right? And then you're going to have to render that down. You're going to have to bake it. That can take a while. Once you get into the game, you might be like, oh, this is not performing that well. But with Unreal Engine 5, you don't have to worry about that. They were throwing some super high quality assets in there. They were saying these statues have like a billion triangles or whatever. There's a ridiculous number of triangles. They pulled in the cinema quality assets, and then the Unreal Engine on the fly was rendering this down losslessly. So you can't even tell that it's removing some of the detail. That's what blows my mind. It's like a movie, right? And you're doing this without the months of stress and work that you would normally have to go through to get an asset that's this high quality into a game without bringing it to a grinding halt. So to be fair, there are some developers out there I'm seeing on different places on the internet that are kind of saying like, yeah, I'll believe this Unreal stuff when I see it, because it sounds a little unreal right now. Being able to grab something from ZBrush and import it straight into Unreal Engine, yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. However, the demo was running with some insane assets. So there's that, but gotta be fair and say that I haven't tried it myself yet, but I am eager to give it a try. Doesn't help that the demo slavishly emulates features we've come to expect from current-gen third-person games like Tomb Raider and Uncharted. It even featured a loading cranny, a bit where you squeeze your character through a small rock crack so the game world beyond can stream in. In a future where all games will be optimized to run on SSDs, such tricks surely won't be needed. Okay, it's maybe that's a trick, but maybe that's also a gameplay element. It's not as much fun just to run in a straight line or just to run on a path. It's fun to run, jump, climb, squeeze through a crack, and keep going. So I don't think the loading crannies are going to go anywhere anytime soon, because it's a gameplay element. And now you can do that as a choice for gameplay and not as a choice for a way to like load in your world. Epic has been in touch that is not a loading moment. See, right there, the update showed up. When I read this article earlier, this update wasn't in there. Okay, the actual goal part was to force the player camera to be really close to the wall to show how much detail there is up at that scene, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The demo presents developers with new ways to achieve effects we're already familiar with. Developers' ingenuity this generation has already given us gorgeous caves, dazzling open worlds. As a player, static, baked-in lighting conditions can look fantastic. It might be an amazing technical achievement to produce the lighting conditions in the Unreal Engine 5 demo, but from a player experience perspective, it is a small thing that I probably won't notice in the middle of a platforming sequence. Yes, you will notice it. The global illumination is nothing short of ridiculous, and they're able to achieve ray tracing-like quality without using NVIDIA's proprietary ray tracing technology. And this means that everyone is going to be able to see in a more realistic way the caves, and like just whenever you have like an overhang or something, the shadows tend to be a bit unrealistic and you miss details that you normally wouldn't see. So it might actually improve your gameplay experience, because with the better lighting and the more realistic bounce, you can see more of the world you're in, and that's important. And it also allowed game developers to focus less on fine-tuning the lights, throwing point lights in places where they probably shouldn't even need to throw a point light, and they can focus on things that are important like story and gameplay elements and mechanics. Oh my god, half of the article disappeared. Half of the article disappeared when I reloaded it. Okay, good. The demo was a marketing exercise, of course, As such, these new features aren't necessarily created with the player in mind, but it goes to show you that the most meaningful advances of the next generation will probably be invisible. Games loading from SSD is a big deal. Okay, we'll talk about that. That's the next thing. The end of the Unreal 5 demo almost demonstrates why. In the demo's most spectacular sequence, our hero swoops through a crumbling city to reach a distant portal. Solid-state drives should allow characters to move at such speeds through detailed environments without texture popping. But is that what the demo shows? It's hard to tell, as most of the city is reduced to a smudge by aggressive motion blur. One thing's for sure, we're going to need to buy some massive solid-state drives next year. Okay, they changed this article like crazy, because at first they were talking about how the, SSD technology was the new thing. And they still kind of talk about SSDs like that's like the most important thing with game film. And let me tell you something. The most important thing for processing graphics is the graphics processing unit. That's the most important thing. Secondary, the RAM, and thirdary is going to be your SSD. Now, PlayStation did say that that's a pretty big deal because they're switching to M.2, and it looks like they're going to be using something that's equivalent to about a Gen 4 speed, Gen 4x4 speed. All right, so an SSD, yeah, it can be important, right? Especially when you're dealing with this kind of quality. Your frame buffer on your GPU is going to be eaten up pretty quickly, but we're talking like Gen 4, by 4 speeds, 5 gigabytes per second, pretty good. PC's been doing that for a couple of years now, but 8, 9 gigabytes per second when you're talking compressed stuff. So being able to stream some of the game world from the SSD is a thing, and they've been using that with Maya and on similar programs for a while. When you're dealing with these huge meshes, just throwing it all into RAM might not work. Especially if it's a really complicated, detailed scene with lots of stuff going on. You may need a really fast hard drive to help stream some of those meshes and textures into the system. And that'll help a little bit, but it's not going to be anything close to even like what you would get when you used, RAM. Like they say, they said the M.2 is that they're using or whatever is about as fast as RAM. And that would have to be pretty slow RAM, because my calculations show that 2133 speed DDR4 memory, that's 2133 megahertz, should give you about 25 gigabytes per second, whereas the M.2 is going to give you 5 to 9 if it's compressed. So not quite on par, but a huge jump up from 500 megabytes per second, which we saw on SSDs, and about 100 to 150 megabytes per second that we see on a regular old spinning hard drive. For the author of this post, I'm glad that he changed it. When I first saw it this morning, it was way, way worse. And coming back and looking at it now, I was in the middle of making my video, dude, and you changed it. Well, so right in the middle of it. So Unreal must have contacted him and been like, dude, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. But for the people who read the post when, it was mostly about that, and also the kinematics, right? Talked about how one of the things that was in the original post was how this new game world is going to require the game developers to do extra work to create these high fidelity environments. And it's also going to cause them to do extra work when it comes to immersive animations and stuff. And we're talking like, as you can see, when she comes up here, she puts her hands up on the side there. Well, the Unreal Engine, in this new version, they're adding sort of these animation systems in so that you don't have to do anything. If you get close to a wall, you can actually activate a thing where you'll reach up and naturally touch the wall. Let's talk about kinematics for a minute, because in the original article they went on and on about how you're going to have to create extra animations to do things like these climbing up walls and stuff. Like right over here, there's a scene where she's climbing up a wall, right? And it's like, well, now we're going to have to do more animations. So it's insinuating that this is going to create more work for the developers when you're climbing and stuff. But take a look at this when you're climbing up the wall here. Notice how the hands are finding spots, and it looks like she's actually climbing. It's not just a static animation. It's just like going like this and not actually grabbing spots on the wall. So that is handled through inverse kinematics. And let me show you what that is in a little demo right here. So as you can see, they're turned off here. No kinematics. The mesh on the ground, the character here, the skeletal mesh, does not know that it's there, so it's just like not working with it. Over here, IK is enabled. That's inverse kinematics. And you can see it's taking into account what's on the ground and adjusting automatically. There's no animation required there. It's an intelligent system. As right here, it's adjusting to make sure that when the mesh is present, The fist stops there and doesn't go and clip through the mesh. So that's just one example. Here's an older example just to show you what it looks like when you're, well, this is a little rough, but you know, running around on a hill or something. Yeah, running around on a hill or something, you see like it automatically does this. There's no animation required for that. So that's going to free up developers time. I mean, but this is something that you can do already in the Unreal Engine, but the fact that it's all going to be native and seamless and easy is going to make everyone's life a lot easier. PC Gamer's article is really dumb. It's one thing that you've cut the article in half. It was so much worse. Like we need to remember that this was actually published, but you cut it in half. So I applaud you for doing that. I'd say you'd probably just need to take it down, or you need to talk to some game developers, someone who knows a lot more than I do and can speak to this on a higher level than I can. But even with my limited knowledge of the game engines, I know that this is going to be a revolutionary tool, especially for indie studios who have smaller budgets and want to spend the money that they do have on gameplay rather than spending it on trying to create meshes and work on performance in their games and spending time iterating on lighting and more lighting and being like, why is this not working? This should make life a lot easier. Working on tons and tons of animations, either doing them by hand or having the money to go to a studio, this is going to make that easier. It's not going to make the game for you, but it'll make your life a lot easier, and you can focus on gameplay mechanics, story, dialogue, plot, and things that's going to matter directly to gamers. You keep going on and on about how I don't see how this is really going to affect gamers at all. Well, besides the fact that it looks like real life or anything, you know, I'm kind of cool with Fortnite or something. This is your voice, even though you're British. I don't know. It's going to affect gamers because it's going to allow for the developers to focus on the things that make the games interesting, and that is the fun factor. Let's talk about the implications for PC gamers, and then we'll call it a day. So for PC gamers, if consoles start taking advantage of streaming textures and stuff straight from your M.2, and a lot of people on PC are using SSDs and M.2, that's going to mean for more detailed worlds with no loading screens, and also it'll mean that the game worlds can be much bigger without having to deal, as far as on a development cycle, without having to deal with figuring out how to make these worlds even function. Sometimes when a game world is huge, it's very difficult to make that game world seamless, and to make that game world work without stuttering. So it could cut down on that a lot. And if Unreal Engine's focusing on that, I can see other engines start focusing on that as well. And we might see a future where the M.2 does work in tandem with RAM and also your video memory to bring these huge meshes that are just too big for the amount of RAM that you have on your video card. Bring these huge meshes in and have them streaming, and maybe it'll pull in the stuff that's on the outside and then let the graphics card process it. But yeah, it could mean a little better fidelity in games. Maybe not as huge of a jump as each generation when it comes to graphics cards and stuff like that. But yeah, it could be handy, and it'll allow your games to do something that professional 3D environments have been doing for quite a while, where it's streaming from the hard drive. So that'll be pretty cool. Otherwise, it's going to free up a lot of resources. And I'm curious to see if the AAA developers actually start using a lot of Quixel scans, because Quixel scans are pretty cool. You come over here, now that Unreal owns Quixel, and you just browse for anything you want. Oh, coastline, okay, great. You browse for all these assets, and you can pull these rocks in. You won't have to reinvent the wheel. No one has to sit in a studio designing rock meshes and then painting rock textures if they're already here. So the downside to that could be you might start seeing this rock in a lot of games. Maybe you will. Maybe someone can stylize this. Maybe the different lighting scenarios and the way they twist it and morph it might make it look a little different. But you might start seeing, especially if the developers just leave it right there as is, don't touch it, you might start seeing the same assets in games. You know, same rock environments, the same walls, the same stuff like that. You might start seeing that a lot because it's so much easier just to grab these things. For instance, I like this rock. It's pretty cool. I want a 4K version of that right now, and I want it imported. All right. And check this out. I've downloaded it. Click on Export. Go over to my Unreal Engine, and look, importing. Now that process would have taken a long time if I was creating my own rock mesh. And right now I've already got, oh, look at there. There comes my meshes. All the LODs are importing. Yeah, whatever. And right there it is. I can go ahead and grab this rock and put it in the world right here. And just go ahead and take a look at it. It's a little rock, huh? Not Arkansas. Hey, there's my rock right there. I just grabbed this from Quixel, 4K version, and threw it in the game. It's right there. So if you can do this with the entire environment and then rearrange it any way you see fit, you know, and especially if we can get like cinema quality versions, then we're talking like, you know, huge stuff like this without seeing blurry textures, you know, like ginormous stuff. That'll be really, really handy for game developers, and seamlessly working together with all these tools that Unreal has been acquiring and then integrating with their software. It's going to be a nice new world. So anyway, that's it. Went into this video a lot more angry. Saw that PC Gamer redacted a lot of the nonsense that was in that article in the first place. And I want to say, PC Gamer, please, please do not write articles without doing research. I know it's an opinion piece, but there are so many facts that go against a lot of the opinions that are going into some of these pieces. And I would still say that the article should probably come down even as it is now, or you should talk to someone who knows what they're talking about in the industry. And I can probably call up a few people in the indie development community who would talk to you and tell you some things that are way above my head. And while we're talking about it, support indie games. Like this. Support indie games, support indie companies, because they're making the niche products for you in the future. This is a really cool thing for developers, both indie and AAA, and it's going to change a lot. It's a major step forward, a bigger step forward than Unreal 3 to Unreal 4. Unreal 5 is a major leap. So PC Gamer, I'm sure a lot of you know more about game development than I do. I'm mostly a composer and a script writer, but I can dabble in the Unreal Engine, so I have a better grasp than like most people out there. But if you have constructive criticisms or if you have some more input, feel free to add that in the comments below. I did chat with Christian, who's Ninjas at Noon over on Twitter, and he's someone who's working on this project with me, and he knows a hell of a lot more about the Unreal Engine, so I chatted with him before I made this video just to make sure that I wasn't way too far off the mark. If anybody has a link to the original article, post it, because it's fun to get outraged. That's what we do online. Be sure to grab yourself a gaming mouse, gaming keyboard, epicpants.com. You can actually grab one of these t-shirts as well. If you're worthy. See you guys later.